Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. I'm going to let Andrea from the CLC give us a little introduction on language justice, and then we'll get started.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrea Saiko, and I'm here with the Community Language Cooperative. I am here because the hosts of this morning have committed to language justice. What this means is that everybody can speak and hear in the language of their heart. After I finish saying this message in English and Spanish, we will begin the interpretation feature. When this happens, you will see a world map pop up at the bottom of your screen where you will be able to select English or Spanish. If you don't see that world map because you're on a phone or a tablet, you can click on the three dots or the part that says more, select language, and then choose either English or Spanish. I ask that if you are not fully bilingual, you choose one of those channels so that you can speak and hear in the language of everybody's heart. After I say this in Spanish, we will begin. Buenos días a todos, mi nombre es Andrea Saiko y estoy aquí con la Community Language Co-op. Estoy aquí porque los anfitriones de esta mañana se han comprometido a la justicia del lenguaje. Esto significa que todos podemos hablar y escuchar en el lenguaje de nuestro corazón. Después de que termine de decir este mensaje, vamos a empezar la interpretación simultánea. Cuando hagamos esto, tú vas a ver un mapa mundo en la parte de abajo de tu pantalla. Si no ves el mapa mundo, por favor dale clic a los 3 puntos o a donde dice More para que puedas seleccionar lenguaje y escojas el salón inglés o español. Si tú no eres totalmente bilingüe, te pido que escojas uno de esos salones para que puedas escuchar a todos en el lenguaje de su corazón. Si tienen alguna pregunta, pueden escribirla en el chat. If you have any question, you can always type it in the chat. Thank you, Emily, and we can begin interpretation now.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay, if everyone is able to choose their language now, I'd like to introduce Sheryl Day. She is an outstanding parent leader from here in Jefferson County, Kentucky, someone we've worked with over the past couple of years in family engagement here in Jefferson County. And she's going to be the facilitator for our panel discussion today. And it's a fantastic panel of current and former Toyota Teachers of the Year. So take it away, Sheryl.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to meet you all. So yes, I'm a parent leader here in Jefferson County, Louisville, Kentucky. I have been with NCFL partnering with family engagement for, as Emily said, a little over 2 years. So excited to be here. I would like to take this time to introduce the panelists. Panelists, if you just tell us your name, how you're connected with NCFL, a new tradition that you're trying this year, and then pick, after you speak, pick the other panelists. So Colleen, if you go first, and then if you could pick the panelists after you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Ryan. I am the past 2019 Toyota Teacher of the Year. I currently teach kindergarten virtually in Hamilton County Schools in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And a new tradition that I'm trying, just making sure that giving grace and being as positive as possible in anything. So I'm excited to be here, and thanks for having me. We'll go ahead and hand it over to Kristen Whitaker.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kristen Whitaker. I was the 2015 Toyota Teacher of the Year. Up until January 2019, I taught high school in Washington, D.C., and now I'm a family engagement specialist with National Centers for Families Learning. And so I definitely miss the classroom, but I thoroughly enjoy getting to work with families all over the country and share my experiences with, well, really anyone who will listen. So thanks for having me here today. And now I'll turn it to our current Teacher of the Year, Ms. Layla.
Hi, my name is Layla Kubash. I am the current Toyota Family Teacher of the Year. I teach middle and high school. One new thing I'm doing is really celebrate everything and everyone as much as possible. really not knowing what the future holds for us. I teach at Norwood City School in Ohio.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for sharing your new traditions. That's exciting. And so just a little housekeeping. I'm sure now a lot of people are in the groove of Zooming, but if you could all keep your screens muted unless you have something to add, or you can also go to the chat if you don't feel comfortable speaking to the entire group. You could put your comments in the chat and we will address them. And then, sorry. So we will go into the first question. So the first question is, what are some of your recommended platforms for communication? And do you think any are better for providing two-way communication? So I love this question. I was really excited about seeing two-way communication because as a parent, and sorry, my kid is in elementary school. And so when I started being a parent leader, of course, he was in kindergarten. And we were new to Kentucky, moving from Louisville, from Chicago. So we didn't know any friends or, anyone that went to the school. So we found Dojo to be very helpful. I know that as he's getting older and I have friends that teach middle school, they don't really use that. But I love Dojo because it tells us the things that we, question as parents where our kids are in school all day about how our kids are doing. And now with NTI, we know any assignments that he has missing or even celebrating with him too. So we love Dojo and we love the value of two-way communication.
Yeah, Sheryl, I agree with you about Class Dojo. I actually use it and I have been using it all my years. It is sometimes used more for elementary, but just in general, Class Dojo being free for the teacher and parent, one is an amazing feature, but then allowing that translation, they translate up into 32 different languages completely free. So I completely agree for that two-way communication. We also use Canvas as a learning management system here, but being able to allow parents to be observers in the class so they can kind of keep that communication on their student work as well is very helpful. And then one other one that we've used is Remind, which allows kind of that texting feature that's been very, very helpful. And I've seen a lot in middle and high school as well.
I've used Class Dojo, Remind, but I have to say, we did like Class Dojo, but I taught mostly seniors. And after a while, they thought it was a bit elementary, And so I had to think about communication differently with the older crowd, mostly 11th and 12th graders. And they developed groups, Facebook groups, Instagram groups, Snapchat groups, and we would go to field trips and things, and they would put together videos within a group during the entire field trip and then send it out to their parents, and they're like, yeah, this is what we did. I'm like, wow, y'all did that on the spot. So, and then their parents can come in and comment in the groups and things like that. So I really think it depends on grade levels. Again, Class Dojo was really cute. I kind of tried, but after a while, they were just kind of like, this feels like spying, or they wanted to be kind of more in control of the content. And teenagers, I tell you, they with these social media apps can do anything. And to be quite honest, I almost felt like I was cheating a little bit, like they were kind of doing the work for me, because when I had to present, what do we do on our field trip, I already had a lovely video that they created on the spot. So I like a variety of things, but for two-way communication, Facebook groups and things like that, where we can all get in and build community together, were very helpful for me.
Yes, I think building community is just so important, especially, now that everyone is, being safe but separate. So I think just building that community and utilizing all your mediums, like you talked about social media. I know that this week in our school district, a lot of different schools have been doing Spirit Weeks this week. And it's just as simple as like wars on Facebook. And so just getting the families engaged that way is just really, really key. And that kind of taps into the next question, which is how to keep engagement fresh. And I think I took some notes, and I just think that being relevant is important. So we talked about different mediums. So TikTok is very popular now. So being able to see your favorite teacher doing like the most popular dance, really will engage students and families, believe it or not. Even though I'm not as hip on the current genres of music, but just seeing adults just act silly and get to the kids' levels, I think is just awesome. And also consistency. Just being able to know that if I miss something in a newsletter, that I can always go to the school's Facebook page or even the PTA. And so I think that, keeping engagement fresh is also keeping parent organizations in the loop to help educate parents, and just keeping it exciting.
I had a lot of challenges about keeping engagement fresh, even pre-COVID for high schoolers. But in this time, some of the things that I lean on, or was leaning on even prior to this, virtual field trips are really cool. And like I said, even before this is something I was encouraging families to do together as extension exercises. The Smithsonian, just about all their museums have a virtual experience on their website. One of my favorites is the National History Museum. They literally have it where you can go through all the exhibits in a virtual way. They even now have the virtual reality type where you almost look, even without having the glasses, it almost makes it look like a sim type or virtual reality world. I'm not up on all the technology as far as the lingo for virtual reality, but that type of thing. Wonderopolis, one of the NCFL websites, is a joy. They have a try it out section where literally you can take each and every wonder of the day, and they'll have an extension activity, something that you can do at home as a family or individual. So really during this time, we have to be creative to keep it fresh. So I would start with some of those free activities, and then kind of build family events, or even what I would encourage some parents to do, offer incentives. I'm all about incentives, all about them. Offer your kid an incentive. Teachers offer incentives, so you might as well offer some too. Like if you do this, then I'll let you get. I'm not a parent, so I don't know what you can offer them, but you offer them 10 extra minutes to clean their room if that's a thing. But you know how to incentivize your kids. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, of getting as much family engagement. I know in the younger settings, we're sending home, like I send home family projects, but I make sure to bring in that pop culture piece, whatever the movie that's popular right now, or the video game. I've learned about the game Among Us that students know about. And so kind of, even if you're still keeping the same content, but changing your slide setup or things like that, just to look like the video game, really helps to engage, and doing that at home too, just to get them up and moving and excited. So I think engagement can look differently, but it can easily be done just in small ways.
Can I jump in? One of the things I do prior to COVID, I have visited the homes of all the families. And now that I have younger siblings, that you have that relationship piece. And I think right now we have hybrid, so we have like AB days. But when we're looking at possibly having, for the state goes to purple, then we will have every day would be virtual. So one of the things is to connect with the students and the families by making a phone call. How are you doing? And I remember last year where sometimes the parents had a meltdown because they did not know the child was not doing the work, or they did not know what to do. And you find that phone call is a way to address their own issues. So then I can go back and be the voice and say, this is what's happening. How can we maybe offer a night for parents where how they can access, look at progress, book, or how to do training. But no matter with all the technology that we have, it's really important to have the listen to their voice live. We want to remember to do that part. And sometimes I have seen where I visited the homes where the families did not have access to internet. Some did not even have access to electricity, but there was a way to be able to reach them by phone, even through a relative.
I respond to a question that's in the chat. I saw it came up. How have you addressed virtual fatigue? And this is going to sound weird because my answer to that, Wonderopolis, which I know, like, wait, that's a website. I know. But the try it out section usually has something that takes you off the computer to go try it outside. I remember there was this one about leaves or things like that. And you can, the try it out extension activity, the try it out section was go outside and see if you can identify some of these leaves on your walk and things like that. They had one about space, which was really relevant because NASA just put out the whole Mars was the biggest it's been in like 100 years or something like that. Don't quote me, but a lot of the activities are something that takes you outside. So I know it seems weird that you have to go through the virtual thing to get outside, but it gives you suggestions of things that you can do that'll take you away from the virtual space and do more hands-on activities.
Yes, and I mean, I am all about the structured activities, but sometimes just stepping out and just taking a walk. Something that our son and I would do is we'll race on our bikes around the block. If he had like a 15-minute break or 20-minute break, we would just get on our bikes and we would race. And so that, you know, again, just to step away from the computer, both working from a parent perspective and from a kid's perspective. So the next question is, how can we actively seek out and uplift the voices of BIPOC? And for those of you that don't know what that means, because I didn't, and I have to Google it, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And so how do we engage those families? How do we examine systems and practices and policies in schools? And so I can contest to this because I feel this is how the relationship between myself and NCFL began, was because they gave us a platform. They gave parents a platform to just talk and vent and let them know how we were feeling and what we needed. So it wasn't that NCFL was this outside entity telling us what we needed. They were like, we want to know, we want to hear what you all have to say, the way you all would like to envision your schools and your systems. So I think just having multiple platforms for families to engage in their thoughts and visions and desires of what they would like to see in their child's education.
Layla, I saw you responding in the chat. Did you want to go ahead and respond to the whole group?
Yes, so sometimes what I do, it helps to do it right away. So I have a list of all the students. If I'm supposed to meet them like first bell from 8 to 9 or 9 to 10, and they're not, I will very quickly make a phone call or text the parents so I have access to the parents and let them know. And the parents would say, hey, my child right now is on the computer. So what we need to do is talk together. We can help redirect the children to maybe they were surfing the internet and say, time to put that away and get back to class.
And just in case everybody wasn't following, I just want to make sure you know that she's answering a question that came in the chat. Have you lost kids? Do you have kids that are not connecting? And what do you do about that? About the BIPOC, oh, I'm sorry, Sheryl, were you about to say something?
Yes, to that, because our kid, so I don't know if different districts use different platforms, but in our district, we use Google. And so we just look at the history. And I think just empowering parents to learn how to navigate the systems that teachers and schools and districts have in place. So I think that goes back again as to having a platform and two-way communication where we can say, hey, I know, I feel like he's not doing what he's supposed to do. You know, what can we do as parents? And just sending a direct message to the teachers to try to figure out what parents can do. And again, on the educators' ends, empowering the parents to reach out to you and be able to ask you questions and really honestly be vulnerable to just share some of their weaknesses, because they may not be able to log on and they're trusting their kids are doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and I know at my school, we kind of created a committee team of teachers that are there to kind of assist teachers who have students that aren't logging on, and kind of finding that game plan. It might be, you know, drive by the house just to see like, hey, is it that you need help logging in, and how can we, you know, get you your login codes or things like that. So, and using those platforms, because a lot of the times the reason why kids aren't getting on or parents just don't know is technology. And so kind of just we use the team of teachers to kind of help with other teachers so we're not all feeling bogged down.
I wanted to give an answer to the question about the BIPOC students and families, to kind of piggyback off of what Sheryl was saying about giving them a platform. To me, that's exactly it. Do focus groups, target the population that you're seeking to serve. When I wanted to get to know the community better, I started small by getting to know my students better. I did home visits, which I know does not seem like great advice during the pandemic, but we will get out of it. So home visits are a great thing. Even if you could set up one-on-one of these Zoom calls. And again, I know we're struggling against Zoom fatigue. I have it, trust me. So I hate to have to keep promoting virtual things, but we are, again, pushing safety. So for the time being, we have to work with what we have. So if a virtual space is one thing you can do, but we'll also try to maybe not do it on Zoom. Like we said, they have meeting spots in other apps and stuff. Zoom feels so professional, which is a great thing for working and things like that. But if you're trying to build relationships, it's okay to take it into a more relaxed space. That's where these Facebook groups come in handy, or the Instagram groups. Of course, making sure that you have security parameters set up so just not just anyone can get into the group, but using those other virtual outlets that we have right now to build relationships, it literally is the best way to get to know what the communities, people of color or otherwise, need, is to talk to them and ask them, to not assume what they need, ask them directly.
Yeah, I was also going to say, you know, to really uplift voices or to just educate your students and kind of get them to learn about, you know, incorporating books, allow them to research and take time to really kind of learn and find answers for themselves. It gives them that voice back because they're taking ownership, and it allows them to kind of build that community within their classroom or keep that community at home that they're building in the classroom. So really bringing in books and even experts, if they're making a video to share with your class or even coming in to a lesson, could be really helpful too.
I don't want to interrupt you guys, but we've had a couple of questions pop up in the chat and I don't want to lose them. So the first question was from, I believe, Rosa or Maria. No, Maria. She asked, what can be done if children are virtually distracted, and how can we help them without being glued to them? That's one question. And then Rosa asked about if anyone is equipping families with technology or training, like blue light glasses or headphones or anything to protect the student's health.
As far as the blue light glasses, again, I left the school system at the January of last year, but this has come up in some of my teacher groups that I still keep in contact with. And again, every district is different. It has been brought to the attention of DCPS, but funding is always an issue when it comes to that type of things. And so I know it's not a perfect solution, but when we assign activities that can be done off the computer, away from the computer, like you get the information and then do it on your own or outside. Another thing that I've seen people do, NCFL actually themselves, we send out toolkits or with activities. And I think Colleen mentioned that as well, sending boxes that already have stuff, activities that you can do away from the computer, because you're right, the toll it takes on being on the computer all the time and things like that, it really does take a toll on your body. So I'm glad that we're aware of it. And I just kind of keep holding on to hope that this is a temporary situation that just won't be an issue for so much longer. But in the meantime, finding as many away from the computer things that can still keep you engaged to do would be my best kind of.
I think with virtual fatigue too, I think again is engaging those parents, because the parents are at home with the kids. And here locally in Kentucky, we also have like little hubs that working families that still have to leave the home, they can take their kids to. So I think again, engaging the parents and identifying those challenges and seeing how they would like the help or how they would like support, because we can't assume that, again, that they know. So again, we want to tap into those parents and empower them to ask those difficult questions to make sure that their kid is engaged. I know for us in our house, when our son is not with us, we have to go search that history, right? So we have to we know the schedule and we know what times he's supposed to be in class. So looking at that, and like if you're on YouTube at 11 o'clock and 11 o'clock is nap time, we may need to have that conversation. So I think again, that falls back on just empowering the parents to ask those questions. And just while I'm on, I wanted to also say that if you guys could follow NCFL on Facebook and Instagram under Dallas Family Learning, go ahead and follow those links, and then also subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah, Sheryl, I agree with you talking about the fatigue with virtual. I think one thing that we forget when we're in physically all together in the classroom, a student is not sitting at the table the whole time for 8 hours of the day. They're getting up, they're going back and forth. So, in the virtual setting, in my example, if I teach a lesson for 45 to 50 minutes, and then they have independent work for 30 minutes before the next lesson, take that time. Like it may not take them 30 minutes. Let them get up, move around, to really help build that, because in the physical setting of school, they're not going to have to stay still as a statue at their table. We're going to be really incorporating that movement. So it's okay to let them, stand up and move around, or, take a little break, and stuff like that. And that will help with that fatigue. I was going to address that one question about blue light glasses, but I didn't want to take over if someone else wanted to share. Okay, so in our school district, we have not provided blue light glasses or headphones. They've done a job where 3 through 12 all have at least a device, and then any extra devices go to the lower grades. But our district has worked with our local internet provider, and families are getting free internet to be able to help them feel successful. So those are things that we are providing. We've had a lot of teachers do like donor choose projects for headphones and blue light glasses to help their students. But the big thing is that we are just trying to work with our community members to get as much donations as we can to meet those students' needs.
Layla, you can go ahead and respond out loud. I think I saw you in the chat.
Yeah, we provide hotspots, and part of a grant that I have received a separate one where if a family, because I came to my attention that some families are homeless and they move a lot, where they're sometimes going to numbers or out of their car or even in a shelter, then we provide a hotspot to make sure that the child is successful. We are not there with the blue lights because it's a Title I district. So for us, giving them the computer and the hotspot is huge. But what I do when I do the virtual to help them with social emotional is sometimes they ask to interact with each other. So I will take my camera off, turn it off, and let them like a service learning project. What would you like to do? What kind of an activity? So it's something where they engage with each other. It's not about the class. Or if a student needs help, I say, okay, how about we'll give you a little bit of time. I'll teach for 10 minutes. And then you can keep put your computer aside and then use the time to complete your work. But I am here. You can holler, you can ask questions, and that helps. We started last Wednesday, something we haven't done with one class. I said we can do chair yoga, and they loved it so much. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give that class a yoga mat, and we're going to practice using virtual. And then we will meet like outside, maybe in the spring, and we're going to create a yoga video for other teachers, and we're going to put that in the Ohio Department of Education website. I am certified in that. The kids absolutely loved it. Even 5 minutes, just a little stretch, lifting your head up. And, I share with the students, like when, we're constantly hunching, and I says, listen to my voice. Hi, my name is Layla. Hi, my name is Layla. It's just having the less airway going to, your lungs, your voice contracts and you become forgetful, you become stressed, and you have no idea why. Just taking a few minutes, can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes would be even amazing. And doing that before each bell. And you don't have to know it, so we'll have the link for them to do it. Just get out of your seat, and I say, sometimes you can even stand up. You don't have to be seated when you're answering the questions.
I wanted to answer a question again that I saw in the chat. And great questions, by the way, I see coming through the chat. I'm sorry if I missed any of them. If you have the support of community-based organizations, how else can they support besides funding? Which I thought was a great question, because I often had people, organizations, people who wanted to support, but needed to figure out a way to do it other than financially. Time is a great one. If they can help, I think one of the things that were mentioned several times on the call already is putting together toolkits and things. We sent out backpacks, and like I said, I'm in DC. The rest of my organization is mostly in Louisville, and Emily, who is on the call, I would talk to her and she's stuffing backpacks. I'm like, I wish I could be there to help, but I, physically can't do that. So there's other things than money that they can donate. Time is one of them. Also, what is their gift? What can they do that they can offer someone? I had a parent who offered to do a cooking class once. So you can have if you have a parent or a community partner who can do that, you can do a virtual cooking class or whatever their gift is. It doesn't always have to be financial. So I'm really glad you put that question in there. I hope that's kind of what you meant, or this is the type of ideas you were looking for, because other than money, time was really one of my bigger things that I was glad to have from community partners, from parents, volunteers, anyone. Whatever your gift, your craft, your specialty, whatever it is that you have to offer it up.
I agree that the best gift you can get from the community member is time. Right now I have some...
1 second, Layla, I'm sorry. I think the interpreter's trying to...
Okay, so sorry.
No, we can't hear you. At least I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No, I mean Andrea, the interpreter. I couldn't hear the interpreter.
Yes. So guys, make sure that you go to the English channel. That's why you can't hear her. So at the bottom where the globe is, make sure you press English as your preference, and then you'll be able to hear her.
All right, I just did that. Now let me see if I can. Yes. Yes, and I can hear you. I'm sorry.
I 100% agree with that. Teaching the younger students, getting them to be as engaged as possible, but getting that sensory need or that movement need. So even as an educator, I provide extra activities that the parent can do if they finish it quickly, you know, go on this scavenger hunt or create this craft project so they're not glued to watching, you know, a show or something. So that's so true.
Did we lose Sheryl?
I think she just got reconnected, so.
Yes, I'm trying to get back with you guys.
Okay, sorry. Do you want me to go to the next question, Sheryl? Or
Yes, please.
Okay. How do teachers, schools cultivate a rapport with all of their families, including strategies for hard to reach families? Great question. And since I'm wearing both the hat of now moderator and panelist, I'm gonna go ahead and share my answer first before I hand it off. And I'm going to say, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, incentivize. When I could not get in contact with parents, I used my most trusted ally, the student. And this probably works different on a high school level. And it worked the best, honestly, with my seniors, because they're like, oh, I need to get these credits, need to pass so I can graduate. And so I'm like, hey, I noticed you need 5 extra credit points. Get a call, parent to agree with the call with me or to meet me at Starbucks for a home visit, because let's be honest, everybody didn't want me coming to their home, and that's fine. You want to get to know me first, that's cool. I'll treat you to a cup of coffee. Let's just talk. It's the relationship I'm after, not actually being in your home. So I would incentivize the student. You get your parent to give me a working number or talk to me or do this, I got you 5 extra credit points. I got this, that, and the third. Incentivize. It was my biggest help. But again, that was from a high school level where I feel like it was easier for me to dangle graduation in front of them. So I'm like, oh, you want to graduate? So I'll let some of the middle school and elementary school teachers chime in, because I know everyone's not at that, has that high school luxury.
I can go next. Would that work? To keep the engagement with different groups, what I have done is I teach a diverse group of families is to always keep it positive, no matter how much we have the urge to talk about something that happened, is to keep it positive, because from experience, what parents have told me is ethnic groups, they take the issues of respect and behavior of the child personal, and they feel like when a child is disrespectful, it reflects badly on the family. So we have to see what we consider disrespectful. So for example, if a teacher complains and says a student is disrespectful, make sure you explain what it is that the child has done that you find disrespectful. About a year ago, there was a student who did not look at the child in the eye, and the teacher felt like it was disrespectful and didn't say what the child did, and the parent ended up taking consequences. So one of the things I do is I stick to the facts. You know, the child didn't do the work, so always sticking to the facts. But the most important thing to reach out different families, always start positive. I send a postcard at the beginning of the school year. I make that phone call and say, I saw something amazing. I would send a positive email. So when you develop that relationship, when you're talking about something, then they will say, okay, we have had it. Instead of waiting until last minute and say, okay, the kid didn't do this, didn't do this, didn't do this. Even if the child did and something, make it, I call the sandwich, where you start with something positive about the child, what the child did, then talk about what the child needs to do, and then end with something very positive. And I always term everything in terms of, instead of the child did not do the work, I think the child needs some support. I don't know what it is the child needs, maybe extra time. The other thing I always do that's very, has proved to be extremely effective, is to support the children by giving them the parents' ideas. So for example, when the families meet with me, I always say, do not punish the child. Don't take away things. And they look at me like, who are you to tell us what to do? And I says, And you said, I said, because it's so important for me to maintain a positive rapport with my own students. I don't want them to be scared when I reach out to you to tell you that the child needs something. So how about we support the child? You do this at home. I can, I can keep up with this. And remember, for me to also let the child know in advance what it is I'm going to tell the parent, and how can we, and I ask the student for ideas. How should I approach them? What would work for them? So that way, from the beginning, the child prepares the parent, and it's when you get a phone call from the school, they will pick it up. They know it's not going to be bad news.
I'm sorry to keep doing this, but I have to toot the horn of NCFL and JCPS because they do this so very well by building rapport and developing a community with parents and teachers, most importantly, and just are the true bridge to the gap between home and school. And so I reach back to providing parents with a platform to talk about successes and talk about their own in-home challenges, because there are still non-academic barriers that impact education, and we can't ignore those. So I think once rapports are developed in the beginning of the year, I love that. It just helps to keep going. And Colleen, you are just at a very unique spot yourself, because those kids are coming from either preschool or straight from home into your classroom. And so, with them being so vulnerable, it's just so vital and important that in the beginning of the year, those relationships are built, because that is the grade where you learn the different colors and the behavior chart. And it's like, where did I go wrong for the last 5 years? But, it's just a different setting. And so school is our child's first social environment, and we as parents just need to just encourage them and empower them, and just have platforms to be vulnerable and ask questions too.
I definitely want to piggyback off of everybody who said something about the developmental relationships, like building relationships. The reason I would try to go all out and do these home visits is because I knew that building a relationship would make everything the whole year smoother. And I'll admit to being initially resistant when my school rolled out home visits, and they're pushing the importance of family engagement. It was also my first year teaching, and I was like, you're kidding me. Like, you want me to go to houses and do all this? On top of learning how to lesson plan and all this other thing, objective calendars and things like that. I thought they were crazy. And then I had a student who reputation preceded them. And I was like, how am I going to build a relationship with this guy? I just did not know. So maybe I'll try one of these home visit things. And that was over a decade ago. And me and that particular parent are still friends to this day. Sheryl and I actually met at one of these NCFL parent leadership kind of events. And I'm not exactly sure how it happened. I know we hit it off from the first day, but I was like, hey, you want to hand out these flyers? Whatever it was, I gave her an assignment to do. And that began our friendship, and we've been working together for family and parent engagement for 2 years now. So definitely building a relationship, and again, by any means necessary. So if you have to incentivize, go ahead and dangle a few things out there, okay?
Layla just made a great comment that I think she should share if she's able to. I know she had to turn off her camera. She might be in class right now.
Yes, I visited the homes prior to up to COVID. I visited the homes of all the students, including those, I teach ESL and Spanish. So I get to visit everyone. And in visiting the homes, it has opened my eyes to not only the cultures and the parents shared as simple things like what the child loves, what are the interests that they have. But I also get a chance to see the challenges and the hardships the family faced. When I used to visit the homes, I used to go with the intent of sharing resources. It's almost like I'm teaching the parents about all what we have in the school. But every time I left, I was in awe and full of gratitude at what I have learned. One of the things it has done to me, it has helped me completely release myself of all judgments. My first time I visited a home of a Hispanic family, my shoes were sticking to the carpet, and I thought, oh, they're not going to get the deposit back. And then I saw a hole in the wall. I'm like, oh, I wonder if somebody's violent. And then I go to another room, and every window was boarded, and the fridge did not have a door. And the mom goes, disculpe, maestra. And she explained to me that she just moved to that apartment. And I went from being judgmental to feeling so much sympathy, to becoming an advocate, to becoming an activist on behalf of these families. So the reason I have parent academies, it's not to teach parents how to parent, but to teach them about their rights, to connect them to opportunities in the community like legal aid who speak Spanish. Because when the families as a whole suffer, our students suffer as well. If they don't have a fridge, if they don't have lights. And it turned out that sometimes, unfortunately, people are taking, the most vulnerable people are taken advantage of. And to see that this landlord charged this family as much as anyone else when this place shouldn't even be habitable. And recently I visited another family, and it turns out it was just 2 weeks ago. I visited the family of an African American, and it was in the car. I'm like, how is it that the parent has 2 jobs, has transportation, but does not have a home? So I paid for the hotel, and then I learned that, like, why am I paying for the hotel? I should give that to her to pay as a deposit. And I learned that in my state, unfortunately, when you are people are a minority, the deposit is 3 times the rent. So a 1 month rent is 3 times the deposit. So now I'm turning into an activist and trying to change policies in my state because I know this has changed in other states. So I briefly become a voice, but I don't want to be a voice forever. This is why I am here. This is why I'm grateful to be among all of you to say we need to continue these conversations so we can amplify each other's voices, whether we are educators or we're family, to bring justice, to make things better for our students.
I completely agree. I mean, that was something that when myself and Brittany Harris, we created the passage, it was that we wanted to be able to break down that wall between, you know, the home life and the school life and be able to combine it together to give parents those resources, not just academic resources. Yes, we teach them, you know, what's happening in their classroom, but providing them those, hey, this is where in the community you can go for this help, because we do. I mean, parents are the first teachers to their students, and they're the continuous teachers. And it's able to provide them with the knowledge to feel empowered to help their student feel successful, and then they feel successful. So I completely agree.
And Colleen, just to highlight, you kind of went up and above when it came to building rapport with this bus, right? Did you want to speak about your bus really quick? You know, I'm such a fan. So if you could just share a little bit about what you did to reach families.
Yeah, myself and another teacher, we were teaching together at the same time. And we just noticed that, you know, parents weren't really able to show up to the school. And when going to ask, you know, why, they're working 3rd shift, or they didn't have a vehicle, or, you know, they were afraid to come to school because they hadn't finished their, you know, high school diploma. And so that kind of got me and another teacher thinking. It was like, we have to bring the classroom to their front door. So we purchased a mobile classroom, or a bus to turn into a mobile classroom. And so we took the seats out and we literally bring the classroom to their front door. We meet with parents and students together to kind of break down those strategies that they're not understanding. And with NCFL, we're now able to purchase a second one to be able to engage even more of the community and be able to impact more. But it's just been really nice to parents are now having those aha moments, and they're engaging with their students and teachers are able to, instead of having to meet in the classroom, that can be scary or not ideal at certain times, they're able to bring a classroom to them to still create that environment of learning, but it's easily accessible.
Thank you all so much. I love the bus idea because here in Kentucky, we, everyone is so spread apart. So some of our kids are, when school is in person, would be on the bus for 45 minutes to an hour. And so it was difficult to get those parents to come to a PTA meeting and different things like that. So we had to bring the PTA meeting to them. And so being flexible is just really, really good. A lot of times we get boggled down with policies and procedures and things like that. But when a lot of times we have to think outside of the box and how to engage families and engage these kiddos. So I think we talked a little bit about this already, but how do you guys address students in regards to parent-teacher communication and or preferences? And then is it better to approach the caregiver separately from the student or together? I, as a parent, like a mixture of both. I like to be able to, contact the teachers and the teachers contact us. And then for us as a team, our kids, the parents, and the teacher to all sit down and make sure that he knows that, hey, we are all on the same page. And so I think that those things help, but I would love to hear from a teacher's perspective when you guys are reaching those difficult families.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Colleen.
No, you go ahead.
I don't know if there's another one that varies from like level to level, like for elementary school, I don't know if you can do one. I don't know if it's different, but for high school purposes, I actually enjoy having a team type feel. So I like to build the relationship kind of together, especially with my seniors, because as they are preparing to leave the home, I find that, or leave the safety of high school, parents sometimes think, oh, they got it from here. Like, they don't need the parent support as much, and I want to reel them back in. And I'm like, no, this is actually when they need a whole lot of support. They're making life decisions kind of right now. And on the opposite of that, the kid sometimes feels like, I'm grown now. I'm grown. And I'm like, oh boy, you grown because you're 17. You're not. And, they think they have all the answers and they don't need their parents. And I want to reel them back in. So when I feel like, we have a team feel, then it works better and everybody's on the same page. And through some of these home visits and meetings I did, I found out that they just hadn't known a lot about each other. Like if you ask a kid in elementary school what they wanted to be, like I'm pretty sure I said I wanted to be a pediatrician. Why? I don't know. It was the first job I kind of heard about. And so when I told my parents I wanted to go to school for engineering or law, they were like, what happened to a pediatrician? And then I find out that when they're older, sometimes the parent no longer knows what the kid wants to do in their plan for life. So when we have some conversations together, we're also breaking down some barriers and some walls and discovering things that they might not have known have changed. But then I also like to have the separate conversations. So like you said, Sheryl, with the hybrid type model, I like to have separate conversations too, because sometimes you get the real vulnerability that way. You might find out students like, oh, I'm not really comfortable telling my parent this yet. How do you think I should approach this? Or I had a parent who wanted to kind of be, I could tell she wanted to be involved. It was a grandparent actually, wanted to be involved, but she would pick and choose. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? I want you to come in the classroom for our presentations. And come to find out, she didn't want her grandchild to find out that she didn't know how to read. And so not only did I help her get into some adult literacy classes, I was able to kind of work around that situation and figure out what the problem is. So I don't think we have to choose either or. I like the idea of doing them both while limiting ourselves.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's situational, especially in the elementary age, but also I think in middle and high, what are you having to conference about, and there might be steps of where, you first want to just talk to the student and talk to the parent and then come together to create that team feel. It just kind of depends on that. But I think it's really important that students are involved at some point in the conversation with the parent and the teacher, because that's going to get them to take ownership no matter what the situation is, because in the end, students are going to be adults. They're going to be grown-ups. So they need to be able to be a part of that conversation, take ownership or set goals, and then feel empowered and embrace whatever that conference may be about. So in the younger settings, I usually start with if it's academics, it would be, I kind of make that game plan. I talk to the parent first, and then we bring the student in to set those goals. If it's behaviorally, I might talk to the student first, then talk to the parent and put it together. So again, you just have to really look at that situation. But in the end, it is a collective group.
Can I jump in? So I do agree that the children need to be involved. That way, even when I did it at the elementary school, when I had a child, I was able to speak in a language a very simple language for the child to understand. And middle and high school, I always like to speak in front of the child, because that way we can create a goal, and then making sure that we are on the same page, and then we can have a plan of action set. We create SMART goals. How are we going to address this from now on? What is it that we need to do to be able to move forward? And that way, because a lot of time when we speak to the parent and then they go, a lot of things gets changed in translation, or the child sometimes wants to be defensive and maybe change part of the story, but also the students have their own misconception or misunderstanding. So by we all being together, we're all on the same page, we can create a goal instead of having the parents go to the child and implement consequences. And then the students come back and feeling maybe upset or resentful, but we're all together to say we are opening a culture of connection and communication for this. We're here to support the child. What can I do in my classroom? What can parent do at home to facilitate the process? But I do agree, at any age, we always need to bring the children on board.
I kind of want to jump into what Ms. Rosa asked in the chat, is what could teachers do to make more parents feel comfortable with them and support each other in the common goal of the well-being of their children. I love the fact that you put the common goal of the well-being of their children, because sometimes when our kids are facing challenges or just different, a lot of times is educators and folks on the other end forget the fact that all parents want the best for their kids. And so I think it's all about language. And just not asking families, as it's a deficit, but more of, it's a strength. So what else can you all do to collaborate with parents? Because if you're already doing the two-way communication and you're already, engaging families, figure out what maybe they don't need any more support. Maybe they need another parent to reach out to them versus a teacher. And so if you have parent-led groups, a lot of times that can get families more engaged in education, and also community-led groups that are engaged in the schools that can also engage your parents in different ways. So again, I reached back out to NCFL because when we were in limbo and not really knowing what school was going to look like, we pulled some of those lessons off of Wonderopolis and kind of engaged, our kiddo as we made that transition to what we call NTI. So I think, it's all about the language and just being compassionate, and then rapport, just kind of building rapport, figuring out what the family likes to do together, maybe, and then seeing how you as a teacher can kind of help instill education at home through their home already implemented home practices.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as teachers, I mean, we have to be transparent to the families and let them know, like, you know, how we're feeling and how we're dealing with situations. That makes a teacher feel and look like more of a human to the parents that we're teaching to, you know, and to the students and things like that. So I think that's your first thing, is to be transparent, but then also offer those, you know, weekly check-ins. And it's not just a, hey, how are you feeling? Like, you know, is there, make it anonymous, just so you can know the general feeling of, you know, your school environment and your class environment, to really be able to figure out. And then you can just share, okay, well, these are some resources that I want to share, or, you know, here's this video to help with that emotional need. Something that my school does to really help with that common well-being of the child is we practice mindfulness and getting students to understand, you know, how to feel those emotions and embrace those emotions, and inviting parents in on that conversation so they can keep that happening in their physical home.
I definitely agree with everything that was said. And only thing I would like to add to that is when you start thinking of comfort, because I had to really start, again, like I told you all, I was the resistant teacher when they first told us to do home visits. And so, and then again, I had a lot of teachers, parents and families who said no. They didn't want me in their homes. They know me, they don't trust me. I get it. I wouldn't say I would invite everybody to my home either. So that was okay. And then I couldn't get them to come to the school either. And I'm like, why you don't want to come to the school? But then, you know what? Every parent might not have had a good school experience themselves. And so they might not want to come in for that. And then you have to think about the fact that we as teachers sometimes need to relinquish some of our power. And it's not that we just demand this power. It's the power that's naturally given to us by the title of teacher. When you walk into our classroom, if we're having a meeting with the parent and I'm sitting behind my desk and that parent or family sit on the other side, it's like a me versus them type feel. You know, you don't know what type of experience, again, that parent has had in the classroom, which is why I mentioned earlier, I started inviting my parents, let's have a conversation at Starbucks, at in Louisville, Heine Brothers, or wherever the case may be. The park, it doesn't have to be somewhere with money or things like that. And let's remove all the things that could be a barrier to developing a relationship, a comfortable relationship, like you said in the question, feeling comfortable. So we can remove all that, and then we can start talking about what our common goals is. And I will often start off these meetings, what are your hopes and dreams? Ask the child, what are the hopes and dreams for your child? Ask the parent, what are the hopes for yourself, as for the child, sorry y'all. And then ask the parent, what are the hopes and dreams for the child? And then you start to notice similarities or differences. And we're starting to get all on one accord. And then with the relationship being built, the trust is being built, the comfort level is being built, the community is being built. We can feel more like teams. So sometimes the simplest things is what I'm really getting at. The small things like the location of the meeting can make a difference. That's why I stopped having them in my classroom. And if I had to have it on campus, then I would like to go to a common area. That wasn't too noisy. After school, you might be able to find a quiet place in the cafeteria, or something where we're on neutral ground, I think is the point, neutral territory. Now I know right now in a virtual world, that's kind of hard to do, but that's again why I suggested maybe not have a virtual meeting in Zoom, maybe find another platform, because when you send an invite out, if I don't change it automatically, it's like meeting in Kristen Whitaker's personal room, then, so again, it's my territory. That's not always comfortable. I'm like, ooh, you sneaking in my room? Are you watching what I have? Or are you recording me or that kind of thing? So find another platform, something out the box where you can kind of level the playing field, so to speak, and then you can start to build this more comfortable setting.
I tried to do that with my students, and then when the word went out to families, it became a bit of a challenge because everyone wanted to have their own ideas. So it was better to pick by the theme, or say, this is what I'm teaching, this is a theme, and you can do a choice activity that you and your parent would like to do. That way the parent have input, they can rely based on their interest and their skill levels without bringing so many ideas, and we cannot honor, and then people would have their feelings hurt. So I tried that. It was I tried it and I wanted to honor everyone. And in the virtual time, it was difficult to implement for all the students. But I think by giving the option, say, and teachers need to have some flexibility. So this is my lesson. For example, this week I'm doing a storytelling, take a folk tale and narrate it and make it so the story happens during COVID. And then it was very amazing because then you can see whether you're from Honduras or you're from Japan, you can use a story, you can talk to your family and you can change it. So that's one way to honor the families and make it doable for everyone.
Yeah, I know in kind of my setting, in the elementary setting, the first thing at the beginning of the year is I kind of just do a family survey to get to know, like, what holidays do they celebrate, what do they not celebrate and represent. And then from there, I also offer, what are things that you would love to, teach with your student or you would like to share with the class. But then to kind of give the parent a heads up of what's learning so you can add on those additional activities is we send out monthly newsletters, giving the parent information of this is the topics that we're going to be working on. And these are things that you can research and add on to your as enrichment activities, just like, utilizing Wonderopolis if we're studying the weather unit, or being able to, find those certain books. So providing a newsletter is really, really helpful, but then also doing that interest survey to build on to the curriculum as a teacher is really helpful, because I know I could reach out to that parent when we get to that point.
For me, I taught DC history, US government. So it wasn't really flexibility on the content as much. Common Core is a thing. I kind of have to do that. But what there is flexibility is in how I present the information in ways that's easier to retain the information. And so I did find that helpful to use funds of knowledge to find out what families knew and how I could almost organically tie it into a lesson. Another easy thing for me is in DC, I taught at a school that had very diverse, we had International Day and everything. I mean, very diverse population. So when they had, how there's Black History Month and Hispanic History Month, everybody has a month along racial lines as much as LGBTQ rights week and, things like that. We would celebrate them all. And we did on this day in history every day, and I would invite students to pick and add to it. So like I did on this day in Black history, and I had a student who always kept up the on this day in Latinx history. So we would show a variety of things, and I would invite parents again to share their gift, whatever they could do with the class. We had a lot of international celebrations and things like that. So it was not a lot of flexibility on the actual content. Again, high school teachers at least are bound by the Common Core, the things that we have to, but I would expand on it, would bring up my own views, extension activities, not like a bias view, not that or whatever, but I'd ask them to challenge me. Like, if this is what this amendment says, then what's right or wrong about it? Like let's unpack it, if you will, and things like that. So there's definitely creative ways to include parents and families in the education process, even if it isn't being able to say, ask them what exactly do you want me to teach you, because you're right, we wouldn't be able to please everyone. Even with Common Core, you can't please every family. Heck, with Common Core, you can't even please every teacher. I know I'm one of the ones who couldn't stand parts of it. I think I can say that now that I'm not in the school system right now. But you know, it's we had to make do and with the best that make do with what we have. I don't know why I'm so tongue-tied today. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I missed that question, so I'm not sure, but it sounds like you guys had a good gist of what was asked, and it seemed like a teacher question, so awesome.
I got you. I also want to keep in mind that I think we have 10 minutes, and we do have one more question, but we also wanted to open the floor for questions from the audience, which will supersede any of the questions that we plan. So I know Emily was keeping an eye on the chat box, but if there's anybody who wants to either in the chat box or come off mute and ask a question or give a comment or share an experience for our remaining, it is 10 minutes left, right, Emily? Did I get that wrong?
It's between 10 and 15, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I want to invite people to either share experience or ask a question. You theoretically have some Teachers of the Years here, but we know that all teachers are wonderful, so all experiences count. So please come off mute, interact with us, share your story, ask a question. We're ready to chat.
I think we ended up addressing most of the ones that were already in the chat, so we haven't passed over anything there, I don't think. Someone asked about blue light and headphone use and how to know if that was damaging. I don't know that any of us are really experts on that, but I think you guys covered that at one point, just talking about taking breaks and giving the students a chance to move around and things like that. That's probably the best answer to that question. But if anybody else has anything, feel free to unmute yourself and shout it out. Otherwise, Sheryl might want to go ahead and just do the last question, and people can put things in the chat while you're doing that.
Okay, if there's no other questions, the last question, what are some unique ways you have been connecting with your families? So again, I've left the classroom, so I'm gonna let the teachers go first and share for this one.
Can I jump in? One of the unique ways, some of the unique ways was to invite, to create an academy with parents, and each week, especially for newcomers, and each week we met in a different location. Like when we met at the library, they learn about the library and they get an ID card. We went to the city hall and they found out you can get a orthodontic assistance. Each time we go somewhere, and they thought that was really great. And in the end, we had a graduation cap and gown. And that way their children can see them as, you know, the education is important to them. Other unique ways I've done was to, at the beginning of each year, I design a postcard, and for 500 cards, it's only $22. And it's a partnership with a secretary where I get all the labels for the cards. But when I design the card, would be for whatever theme that year is. So for example, last year we had a TV talk show. And so the logo of the TV talk show, and then I would send it to all the parents and say, we have a new program. And that's been very great way to start the year. Actually, before school begins, they have a card, they get an idea of what is happening, and then let the parents know, I'm a resource, you can come to me. And it was very well received.
Yeah, I have tried a couple different ways. So one was using the postcards. Anyone likes getting mail. I mean, it's just fun to get mail. So to then address it specifically to the student and one specifically to the parent, it gets them excited. But another unique way is Zoom is the preferred platform for our system. So, you know, taking the stress of education Zoom, and it might be, you know, let's have a popsicle party. And so, you know, I, in the mail, sent some of those like non-frozen popsicles, and then just put a note on there like, freeze them in the freezer and be ready by Friday. And then we all as families came on and we had a popsicle dance party, you know, getting to build those relationships and things that we would do when we could all come together. So kind of those, and then we're still having, you know, our PTA meetings and things like that. And it is via Zoom, but we add those more engagement pieces, you know, getting up and doing a go noodle and dancing, or a fact of the day, things like that is how we're just trying to keep them engaged and excited.
Kristen, did you get my token?
I just, it's sideways.
Aw.
I know how to. Okay, she asked me to share a picture, y'all, and she knows I'm not the techiest person. So here, oh, Andrea, I see your name, your hand. I'm sorry. Thank you. And thanks for that comment. I'm like, oh, I almost got choked up around here. That's very sweet. I did not figure out how to get this up right, but I'm gonna share this picture anyway. Let's see, share screen number 2. I think I'm sharing it.
Yes. So thank you, Kristen. This is my virtual hug to you guys. So this is a picture that I sent to my son's teacher. He has 2, one for reading and math and one for science and whatever subject I missed. So, and I knew that this is tough. NTI is tough and virtual is tough. And so it's just a little token. So this was him opening up. He just turned 10 October 2nd. And so he was opening up his gifts, and obviously he got one that he was really excited about. So I sent this to the teachers and just said, this is how we feel with having them as teachers, because you guys do amazing work making school engaging for our little ones during this time. So from all parents, I thank you. And so does Jason.
Oh, very sweet. Thank you for that. Did we get all questions answered? Panelists, did you have a closing statement or anything you wanted to share? On behalf of NCFL, I definitely want to thank all the panelists. It was fun to share space and community with you all and all our visitors. I hope it was worthwhile. Again, I will talk about this to anybody willing to listen. So if anybody ever wants to reach out to me because they're that bored and want to have a conversation with me, feel free. I will put my email in the chat.
I just want to say thank you to NCFL for letting me be a part of it, and for you all to listen and ask questions and just keep this conversation going, because home engagement is still going to be happening even after all this craziness. So this is our time to really jump forward and embrace it.
Just as a parent, again, thank you educators for everything that you all do. Thank you NCFL for creating a platform and a community for us to have these conversations. Teachers, when it gets to a point where you're like, I'm not getting this parent, don't give up. Because at first I was that parent that I didn't see a need to engage until my son actually got into traditional school. So don't give up, keep striving and trying different ways to engage families.
Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. I hope you guys have a great afternoon and a great weekend. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.